Good morning, everyone. I would like to welcome you all to the district's Changing Recycling Requirements webinar. Thank you all for taking the time to join us today. Here's our agenda for today's webinar. We'll do some quick round of welcomes and introductions. We'll go over current recycling requirements and discuss new upcoming requirements that will be effective in 2018. We'll review how this change may impact stakeholders and also solicit some feedback in terms of what resources may be helpful to transition to this new recycling list. We also have some colleagues from DGS who will be sharing recycling tools and resources specifically for schools. And we have also budgeted some time to solicit feedback, again, to get those resources that you will need the most. And I'll go over some information regarding food service packaging requirements in terms of what food serviceware schools can procure for consumer use. And at the end, we'll go over a timeline and answer any last-minute questions. So some housekeeping information for today. Today's webinar will be recorded and available online. We will be emailing everyone with resources in the slide deck after this webinar. And if you have questions or feedback, again, there will be opportunity at the end to do so. Please use the chat function on your right. And you can also use the raise your hand function, and we will unmute you so you can ask your question over phone. And if you forget your question, again, we will share our information, our email and contact at the end so you can reach us. We have two speakers today. My name is Helen Lee. I am a program analyst at the Office of Waste Diversion at the Department of Public Works. I also have Beth Gingle joining us today from the Department of General Services from the Sustainability and Energy Division. She's a schools conservation coordinator and specifically works on the DC Recycles program. That will go ahead and get started. In the district, solid waste collection can be broken down to two general categories. First, the Department of Public Works services single-family homes and buildings with 3 or fewer units for curbside trash and recycling. This population represents about 105,000 households in the district. The second category, which is where schools fit, are commercial properties. All commercial facilities, including apartments with 4 or more units, offices, schools, churches, and nonprofits, are responsible for contracting their own hauling services, and we'll go into specifically how that applies to DCPS. These materials are often taken to transfer stations, straight to recycling or compost facilities, and lastly, waste energy or landfills. The district has set an ambitious target under the Sustainable DC Plan to achieve a citywide 80% diversion rate and 15% reduction by 2032. Schools will play a critical role in achieving this goal. The Department of General Services, or DGS, manages a citywide hauling contract for DC municipal buildings, which includes all DC public schools buildings. And under the Healthy Schools Act, DGS is responsible for a plan for DCPS to achieve a 45% recycling diversion rate and can give technical assistance to charter schools. Okay, now I'll go over some of the current commercial recycling requirements that already applies in the district. There are 3 basics where first, as a commercial property, your responsibility is to supply accessible recycling containers so that any individuals at your school, such as your students, staff, or visitors, can separate and recycle their waste. This means contracting hauling services to provide containers outside the buildings that are picked up by a truck, as well as providing bins inside the building for stakeholders to separate their waste. For DCPS schools, the hauling services are contracted by DGS, and standardized supplies are provided under the DCPS Recycles program. Public charter schools and private schools are responsible for contracting their own hauling services unless otherwise specified in a lease. Current recycling rules state that you should also communicate information annually, including how and what to recycle, as well as post signs and containers showing what to place in those recycling bins. Again, under DC municipal regulations, schools as well as churches and nonprofits are considered commercial properties. These laws apply to the owner of the building unless otherwise specified in a lease. And as a commercial property owner, currently it is required to separate paper, paperboard, cardboard, metal, plastics, and glass, or plastics that are narrow-necked plastic bottles. The new requirement that will be effective in January 1, 2018 is a change in what is required to be recycled in the district. So this past December, the mayor's list of recyclables and compostables was published, where for the first time in the district, it provides a single comprehensive list of recyclables. So in a lot of cases now, what you can recycle depends on kind of where you are. What you can recycle at work and home and school or a business can be different where you go. Now there will be one defined list of recyclables that all district properties will be required to follow for both the commercial and residential sectors. So what is really exciting is that not only will this list make it easier for everyone to recycle in the district, but what can be recycled is growing and expanding to help the district become a cleaner and greener city. Officially, this new recycling list will go into effect January 1, and until then, existing requirements will remain in effect in terms of what's considered recyclable. If you would like to make the switch early on, that's okay too. We wanted to provide ample time for our stakeholders to know this new list and transition. And this list was created by a survey of the recycling facilities in the region, where we asked them for over 70 different product types, which materials they would accept but do not want or reject. Recycling facilities are also called Material Recovery Facilities, or MRFs. What was added on this list again were the ones that the majority accepted, and what was removed were the ones that the MRFs did not want. So let's dive into that list we've been talking about. In addition to the materials that are currently required to be recycled that we just mentioned, including paper, paperboard, cardboard, metal, plastics, and glass, there are new additions to this list that we will be diving into. Again, these materials are now added, will be required to be recycled starting January 1, 2018. And items that have been added to this list include materials like paper and plastic food service items. This includes pizza boxes, paper coffee cups, paper and plastic plates, bowls, and plastic clamshells. These materials should be clean and empty of any food or liquids. And I know this is a commonly asked question, but if pizza boxes, for example, have little dots of oil on them, that is okay to recycle. Now, if it's drenched in sauce and cheese, we ask that it goes into the trash or a compost system if you have that in place. And other materials that are now recyclable for the commercial sector that were already recyclable for the residential curbside recycling include rigid bulky plastics like large milk crates, large plastic tubs and containers that contain coffee or other deli products, milk, juice, and soup cartons. I know that's a common material that comes out of schools, as well as aluminum foil and pie pans. These are all materials can now be recycled. So what is now removed from what is considered to be recyclable is plastic bags, film, and wraps. For single-stream curbside, we are asking residents to put their recyclables in paper bags, but loose is most preferred. These bags and wraps can often be recycled, however, at grocery stores and retailers throughout the district. Now, for commercial properties, which include schools, we are allowing large bags or liners for commercial operational purposes. However, please keep in mind that a lot of these recycling facilities often reject the whole bag of recyclables because the bags create an operational and safety hazard as seen on the bottom right picture. Bags of bags are what we really want to avoid, but larger liners will be accepted to move materials to your dumpsters or compactors outside. Now with that, I'll turn it over to Beth, who will delve more closely into how these requirements will impact schools.
Thanks, Helen. Hi, this is Beth Gingold, Schools Conservation Coordinator with the Department of General Services. I manage the DCPS Recycles program and can also provide technical assistance to public charter schools. All of this information that I'm providing here can also be found on our website, which is provided at the end of this presentation. The good news is that all schools can recycle right. We already have schools in all 8 wards and at all grade levels with successful recycling programs. And when we say recycle right, we mean that we're getting the right materials to the right facilities to ultimately get recycled. This means that everyone sorts into the right bins, the maintenance staff make sure that they get the materials into the right dumpsters, and a hauler takes the materials to a recycling facility. So right now when we're saying the right materials, we're talking about what is on the new mayor's list. So how is this new recycling list going to impact schools? This list for the first time, provides a common list for all recycling programs in the city of what is and is not recyclable. So all hauling contracts will need to be revised to be consistent with the list. The implications for a particular school depends on who owns the building the school is in, or how responsibilities about the contracts are determined in the lease. Since all DCPS schools are in municipal buildings, they receive hauling services under the citywide hauling contract, which will be updated by DGS, and they will receive updated signage and instructions under the DCPS Recycle program. Public charter schools and private schools will need to check the hauling contracts applicable to the building they're in, and will likely need updated signage and training for maintenance staff. All schools will need to communicate the program to all staff and students, as well as any other users of the building. So organizations that are based in schools or that use schools to host events should make sure to follow the program that is in that school building. But all schools can follow the 5 steps to recycle right. So the first step is to create accountability. Since recycling requires everyone's participation, establishing a recycling program takes a school-wide effort. Success requires that leadership, operations, and education responsibilities are clearly delegated and that there are clear methods for evaluating the program. The DCPS Recycles Honor Roll provides a checklist for DCPS schools to determine whether their program is correct. The most successful schools have a principal that supports the program, a highly effective custodial foreman, and 1 or more teachers who work with custodial staff as part of a team to communicate about the program to all staff and students. The second step is to confirm services, and this was the one that's most relevant to the new mayor's list. DCPS schools typically receive 4 different types of containers, 1 dumpster for trash, a dumpster for paper and cardboard, green carts for organics, and blue carts for mixed recyclables, that is for bottles and cans. Many charter schools have a dumpster for trash and a dumpster for single stream recycling, that is when they mix the paper, cardboard, and bottles and cans together. If you don't know whether your school is recycling, you can go outside and check what dumpsters you have and talk to your school operations director or manager. One of the legal requirements is signage that makes it clear what goes in each of the hauling containers. So the signage and services will need to be consistent with the new mayor's list. The third step is to establish collection procedures. Ultimately, the custodial staff should be responsible for making sure the materials get into the right bins. All custodial staff will need to receive training. In DCPS, we train the custodial staff that their job is to collect, but not to sort. It's everyone's job to sort correctly. If sorting is incorrect, that is, if the recycling bin gets contaminated because someone puts trash in it, then the custodians are trained to empty it into the trash. In some schools, custodial staff are fully responsible for all collection. Other schools have students help with collection or have staff or students take materials to a central location. For example, Burroughs Elementary School in Ward 5, which was the DCPS Recycle success story for 2017, teachers bring their recyclables to sorting stations in the hallways, which are then emptied by the custodial staff. At Cardozo Education Campus, which was the first high school to make the DCPS Recycles Honor Roll, a team of staff and students collect the recyclables as part of an after-school club, and these types of activities can count toward community service hour requirements for graduation. So the fourth step is to order and set up equipment and supplies. Equipment includes bins and lids. Supplies includes labels, liners, and signage. Bins should be color-coded, and every recycling bin should have a label. Blue is a standard color for recycling. In DCPS, since we do paper and bottles and cans separately, we have different labels for our paper bins and the bottles and cans bins. Liner use should be minimized, but if liners are used, they should be clear for recycling and follow the Office of Contracting and Procurement's guidelines for environmentally preferable purchasing. DGS provides DCPS schools with these standardized supplies, including yellow bins and compostable liners there's about 30 schools that so far are participating in organics recycling. DGS does not provide black or clear liners for trash or regular recycling. And note that equipment can really be no or low cost for any school. Bins can be made out of cardboard boxes, labels can be made by students, The Recycled Across America labels that are pictured here provide those labels to all schools, including charter schools, at no cost. DPW is also working on resources such as an online sign maker, which will allow all schools to easily customize and print signage consistent with the mayor's list. So step 5, which is actually the most challenging, is to communicate sorting procedures to all staff and students. Since this is a behavior change for adults especially, there often needs to be a lot of reminders and reinforcement. School leadership should really communicate the expectation of participation to all staff, as well as to delegate the communications responsibilities. Students tend to learn the new sorting procedures quickly. We have pre-K students through high school students, if the expectations are clear and consistently enforced. In many schools, students really enjoy becoming peer educators and helping other students and staff learn to participate correctly. So once a basic program is in place, there are many, many ways to tie recycling to the curriculum. Students can participate in the citywide recycling competitions organized by DGS. Those are open to all schools, public, private, and charter, or come up with their own civic action projects to promote recycling or litter prevention. Schools can also engage parents to connect behaviors learned at school with the home. And for example, schools can connect parents with the resources from DPW on residential recycling and the compost drop-off program. So to learn more about resources for schools, please do visit the website, the DGS Healthy Schools website. It includes resources about the 5 steps to success, as well as additional resources for teachers and environmental educators, such as lesson plans developed by teachers and suggestions for field trips. It also includes guidance documents, for example, on how to manage a zero waste at the school. So yeah, please don't hesitate to contact me for additional ideas or assistance.
Okay. Other resources that are currently available that are on DPW's website is on dpw.dc.gov/recycling compost list. Again, we will be sharing these slides with everyone by email so that you can access this information. The website will include YouTube links of past and the webinar for today, recorded webinars. And the website also has a downloadable fact sheet where it explains recycling requirements, as well as in the back showing what types of materials should go into your recycling bin. So please feel free to print this resource and use it as a fact sheet and reminder, and feel free to share it with your staff and administrator as necessary. We also have some frequently asked questions on this website, and if there's anyone else who wants to really get into the technical side of this, we have share some resources developed by the Food Service Packaging Institute in regards to case studies of other jurisdictions recycling food service packaging and studies on food residue. And we have been getting a lot of feedback on whether a lot of the food service packaging that have been added to this new recycling list, such as the pizza boxes, are truly recycled. And so on July 27th, we will be hosting a technical webinar with guest speakers from FPI titled, "How do they recycle that? The truth about pizza boxes, coffee cups, and more." The registration link for this webinar will also be on our website. So for those who really want to get into the technical side, I highly encourage that webinar. Another exciting resource that is geared more towards the residential sector is the newly established food waste drop-off program. While this program is more about composting than recycling, this new program is a new free service that allows district residents to drop off food scraps to be composted right here in the district. And the service is available in all 8 wards and located at designated farmers markets. And as Beth mentioned in her previous slide about connecting with parents, this is a really great resource for students to participate in waste diversion outside of schools. Okay, in addition to these resources, we are also in development of new tools for commercial properties to successfully transition into the new recycling list. Examples of these tools that are in consideration include dumpster decals to help you back of house staff identify and correctly separate waste, recycling, and compost signs that you can put near your bins, fact sheets that can be shared with your staff, and updating our commercial recycling guide. We're also creating sample emails that can be sent to your staff regarding recycling, as well as a sample newsletter article that can be customized to help you spread the word to schools. Finally, we're also looking at developing a calculator to help stakeholders estimate how much volume is required for recycling to be captured back of house. And while many of these tools we just mentioned relate to the commercial properties, we are also planning on really doing a huge push, outreach push to the residential sector, including sending out a mailer to single-family homes on the new recycling list. These resources will be shared starting this fall. And before we move on to other recycling requirements, I do want to take some time to answer some questions. We do also want to solicit feedback in terms of what resources you think will be most helpful for you to transition to this new list in January. So I will open that chat function up, so if you guys could ask your questions through the chat function, or please use the raise your hand button and we will unmute you. Oops. Okay, we will have, again, more time towards the end for feedback and answer any questions, so we'll get back to that. I am going to transition and talk about food service packaging requirements in the district. This is really in terms of what products you can procure in terms of in your cafeterias that can be used by your consumer use. So we talked about the mayor's list and that recycling list of what happens to your materials after it's been generated, but this is really targeting the purchasing of the food service ware before it becomes waste. So as you may already be aware, a ban of styrofoam or expanded polystyrene food service ware went into effect in 2016. In addition to that foam ban, starting in January of this year, disposable food service ware must be recyclable or compostable. And our sister agency, Department of Energy and Environment, specifically works on this, and they have defined recyclable and compostable according to the mayor's list that we have described in this webinar. And I also want to mention that while the 2017 requirements are currently in effect, outreach and education is a priority and will be focused for the first year in order to make sure that the regulated community is aware of these new requirements. And active enforcement of this law will start January 1 of 2018. So the following is a list of materials pulled directly from the recycling list that are considered compliant under the new food service packaging requirements. Essentially, disposable food service products that are made of rigid plastic, paper with a plastic or wax coating, and anything certified as compostable by BPI are all considered compliant with the requirements. And there are certain items that are considered compliant for consumer use with the food service packaging requirements, but it should not be put in the recycling stream. So items that are made of recyclable materials, like rigid plastics, but are smaller than 2 inches in any two dimensions, are okay to distribute for consumer use, but once they've been used, they should not be put into the recycling bin. Oftentimes, these smaller products fall through the sorting process at the recycling facilities, and it's captured as a contaminant. So it is best for these products to go into the trash bin unless you have a specialized collection system like the Give Me 5 program for cutlery. Items that will be targeted for enforcement beginning in 2018 are primarily products made out of mixed materials, plastic and paper, foil and paper, such as the hot dog and hamburger wrappers. So paper bread and cookie bags with a plastic window, or hot dog wraps that are foil and paper, these materials will be banned. And as a reminder, there are few exemptions to these requirements. Anything packaged outside the district is exempt, as well as materials used to package raw meat, fish, or seafood. Or also, any food service products purchased for home use will not be applicable. And to finally wrap up, I'll just quickly go over the timeline again. The new recycling list was published this past December, and we notified the regional recycling facilities, the recycling and solid waste haulers, and the trade associations of this change. We're now in this phase where we are notifying early on district properties and doing stakeholder engagement and conducting education and outreach. We are developing a series of tools and resources, as we mentioned, for commercial properties as well as for the residential sector. since we mentioned this list applies not only at your school or business, but homes as well. And in the fall, we will be continuing our education and outreach and publishing these tools to help stakeholders transition to the new recycling list on our website. The DC Recycles Right competition also starts in the fall. Again, all these rules in terms of what we discussed today, the food service packaging rules and the new recycling list, will be effective starting January 1, 2018. And starting next year, all properties in the district will be required to source separate their recyclables according to that new list. Okay, now we have some time for, again, questions, and I will open up the line if anyone wants to use a raise your hand button. But really, what will be most helpful for us is to kind of get an understanding of what tools and what resources schools most need to help set up a successful recycling program with this new list. So please, again, feel free to use that chat function. And I will actually go ahead, because it's a pretty small group, I'm going to unmute everyone, and feel free to ask your questions directly on the phone. All right, well, if there are no questions at this time, that's okay. Please feel free to email us the contacts on the slide. And again, this webinar has been recorded, so we will provide that link to you if you want to reference any of the materials that have been discussed today. A lot of the tools and resources, we're really working hard on developing it and publishing it for fall. And we are super excited to expand this new recycling list. And that concludes our presentation today. Thank you, Beth, for joining me and speaking with me. And thank you all for joining us. And again, you should be expecting an email from us soon with materials that have been discussed today. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.